Who's seen this before? Robin asks, how do I fix a security bug? And Batman says, you should know. This is basically what happened the first time that someone scanned one of my apps with a vulnerability scanner. He sends me an email with this huge automated report attached to it, and I have no idea what it means, so I ask for help. And he tells me, you should know. So then I scurry back to my desk. My team's all like, what does this mean? This is years ago. And after much researching and Googling, I send it back to him. We have to go through this 3 times for me to finally pass all the tests. I'm like, wow, that was hard. And he said, if you were a good programmer, you would have never had any of these problems in the first place. Wow, thanks, buddy. And so that taught me a valuable lesson, a bad lesson. Don't ask security for help. And now that I've switched sides and I work in application security and I actually do security testing all the time, I know that that guy had no idea what that report meant. And he was too embarrassed to admit it, and that's why he said that. So with that, let's talk about insecurity and information technology. So, yeah, what do developers do that can make the security team feel insecure? Well, first of all, they hide stuff from the security team. They don't ask for the security team's advice when maybe they should. For instance, don't ask Tanya how to do crypto. We'll just base64 encode it twice. No one will ever crack that. Sometimes they receive the security report and they're like, we don't have time for that, or they won't let you do security testing because there's just no time. Besides hiding things and not taking advice, sometimes they just don't ask for advice, and it can kind of make the security team feel a bit like chopped liver. So let's look at the other side of this coin. What does security do that could make developers not feel very good about themselves? Well, let's see. So when I got that report that was really long, full of bugs, it made me feel like a giant loser. If you send someone a static analysis report that's like 500 pages long, that doesn't make developers feel good. I forget I'm not a developer anymore. Sometimes the security team doesn't give usable advice. So what they do is they send a link to NIST. Yeah, but I wanted to know how to do a file upload securely. Read NIST. No, that's just not answering, right? Sometimes they kind of seem like a gate, like you have to get past them. And they'll add requirements to your security, the requirements to your project, and when you ask why, they say because security. And then they don't explain, like you're a dummy and you can't understand, right? And it's like, just tell me why we need to do these things. I need to understand. It's a lot easier to do work if you know why you're doing it. And like we saw in the last slide, or the very first slide, sometimes when they tell developers about problems, they can make them feel incompetent when they do it. So, in my opinion, this creates feelings of job insecurity in the development team and the security team. This friction between the two teams. So I've worked at a lot of places, and I do consulting, and I talk to a lot of people. And I saw this happening in so many shops, like from both sides, like the developers just basically always us hiding from the security team. And the security team being like, why don't the developers talk to us? And this friction, it causes this feeling of job insecurity. And so I researched it. I started researching this a year ago. And it turns out the social scientists have already looked into this a lot, so I didn't have to do that much work. Thank you. And it turns out that when people feel insecurities in their jobs, they have this predictably bad behavior. So let's look at that behavior. Deviant behavior. So if you have employees acting with deviant behavior, do you think that they are following your processes? Maybe they're not. Moral disengagement. Do you want someone with flexible morals being in charge of your sensitive data? Reduced job involvement. Great. I have a big team full of uninspired IT folk. Risk-taking behavior. since I'm in an IT security crowd, I feel like you probably know what risk-taking behavior is. And this last one's a bit weird. Reduction of organizational citizenship behavior. So that is the positive workplace activity that you do. So let's say you are in the kitchen and no one's around. You know you're by yourself, and you're pouring coffee and you spill a little bit on the counter. If you have good organizational citizenship behavior, what you will do is you will grab some paper towel and you'll wipe that up, and you might just wipe down the whole counter if there's water on it, because you feel invested in your workplace and your job, right? But if you don't have good organizational citizenship behavior, what you'll do is you'll leave the coffee, and you might think, you know what? Screw those other guys. When people are acting like this, when they're deviating from the processes you've planned for them, they're not really involved, they're not really invested, they don't seem to care as much. Do you think they're making bulletproof software? I don't. Do you think that that person's gonna stay really, really late fixing every single last security bug? Or diligently test over and over and over to make sure that every single flaw is fixed? I don't think they will. And in my opinion, all of this leads to insecure software. That is the thesis of my whole talk. And from this point forward, instead of talking about problems, because a bunch of you have probably seen a lot of these problems, especially if you develop software or you work in application security. And we have to fix these things. And so let's talk about solutions. Okay, I have a plan. You don't have to read it. I read that as soon as you put words on the screen, everyone reads it. So I'm gonna read it with you, it's gonna be great. So the plan is to support the development and the security team with processes, training, and resources so that they confidently get their jobs done. And then, step 2, we're gonna initiate and maintain culture change. So this plan, for the rest of the talk, I'm just gonna dissect it piece by piece and give you examples of things with funny memes to help you remember of what you could go back to your office and do starting whenever you get back there. Let's go. So let's talk about processes. So if I'm gonna make a change that takes 30 seconds to do, it shouldn't take 3 weeks to get approval to do it. There shouldn't be 21 steps to get your step approved unless you're launching a nuke, right? Like someone who's 4 levels above me in my organizational, in the org chart or wherever I work, my boss's 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 boss, that person should not be approving changes that I make as part of my everyday job. We're wasting everyone's time. That person has no idea what I do, and they have no idea if that change is gonna break something else, right? So let's create processes that work so everyone starts getting stuff done, and then they start feeling more awesome. So 1, you don't have an application security team? This baby will not put up with that. The application security team is the part of your security team that knows how to make bulletproof software. So they know how to do security testing. They know how to do code review. They know how to teach developers about security flaws and how to fix them, right? So they don't do all the work. They help steer the developers and help teach them to help them meet their security goals. So if you don't have an application security team and you work in an enterprise business, you really need one. Approximately 25% of all security incidents are caused by vulnerable software. Are you spending a quarter of your budget on application security? And if you're not, maybe you can afford an AppSec team. So you remember that team we just hired? I have worked for them already. So every time from now on that you start a brand new software project, you are going to matrix one of them onto the team. Sometimes this is called the partnership model. And basically, they are going to follow the project the whole way through and be your go-to person for security. So if you need a test done, they'll do it or they'll find someone that does it. If you need architectural advice, they will either answer you or they'll find someone that can review your architecture for you and answer you. So no more guessing who to talk to. This person will go all the way through the project with you. It's so nice. I've totally worked in a model like this where I was the developer. It was so great. So I do caution, though, that you cannot assign this person to 21 different projects at the same time, because then you have a bottleneck, and you've just created a problem instead of fixing one. I suggest a rule of 3, because as you'll see in further slides, I have a lot more work for these people to do than just this. So, another thing we can do is start security early and do it the whole way through, sometimes called pushing left. So formalize security activities as part of your system development lifecycle, right? So no matter what paradigm you're doing, like if you're doing a great big waterfall or you're doing agile, it doesn't matter. You still have to know what you're building. You still have to actually code it. You still have to make a plan, whether it's in little cycles or big cycles. You still need to do these things, and we still need to do security activities. We just need to adjust them depending upon what type of way you're doing to build your software. So formalize these activities as part of your system, and you'll have much, much, much better software. So with that in mind, security needs to adjust itself as need be to what the developers are doing. So if the developers are sprinting, security needs to get running shoes and learn how to sprint, right? So break security into smaller pieces if that's what you need to do. One thing you can do is, for instance, if you're doing static code analysis, I've seen it where there's a big waterfall happening and you have this 3-week window where you do this big code review and static code analysis. Awesome. But if they're doing agile, that's not appropriate, right? So instead, just do one sweep and just look for XSS, cross-site scripting. And then in your next sweep, just look for injection vulnerabilities. Adjust yourself to the developers because they are like water. They're going to go around you to get to where they need to be. They're not going to stop for you or anyone. So we better catch up. I don't always validate my vulnerability assessment results, but when I do, I do it in production. I cannot stress this enough. When you send results from security testing or analysis or whatever to developers, you need to validate everything. You cannot send false positives, because when you do that, you are sending out them on a wild goose chase. It's really hard to prove a false positive. And so you're also like ruining their trust in you, right? Because they're gonna take forever looking for this thing that doesn't exist, and then they're not gonna trust the rest of your results from then on. And I've seen it create huge, huge friction. So always validate the results. If you have something coming out of a security tool and you're like, that will take too long, well then it takes too long for the developers too, right? They don't even have all the security tools and training that you have. So please be mindful. Let's talk about training. I feel like Mr. T is like really forceful with the training. Okay, so when I mean training, I don't mean general IT security training. I mean training that is exactly specific to your job responsibilities that you do every day. So don't click that link, but you're a coder, secure coding training, right? You're a software architect, secure design and threat modeling. Security training that is specific to what people need. So let's get into it. Do you see this guy? He looks pretty stressed, right? That's because he thinks he needs to know everything. There's no shame in asking for training if you feel weak in an area or there's some new technology and you think you need to know. If there's no money for training, there are lots of resources online of varying qualities, but some are really good that are free or very low cost. You don't want to leave these things as ambiguous or unknown, right? If someone from the development team asks you a question, you need to know the answer. And if you've researched and you've done training and you still don't know, call a professional. And by that I mean consultant. Because when you leave things as unknown or ambiguous, that's where the insecurity starts, because people start guessing. I love this slide. What if you gave security training and it was free? If you can train your developers in secure coding and other things and you pay for it, they will all show up. When I was a developer, I had enough money for a course once every 2 years. And do you think I was gonna spend that money on a security training? No, no, no. I'm like, show me that sexy front-end JavaScript framework, yeah. I was not interested in like, oh, security. So if you provide it either at a greatly reduced cost because you bring someone in or you make it free, the developers will line up for it. Also, don't just give training one single time. I've totally heard people say like, yeah, we did security training like way back in 2012 that one time. No, things change, and so we need to keep doing it. Another thing is job shadowing, or death by fire. So the next time there's an incident, bring a developer with you. Next time you toss a report for developers to fix of security bugs, make someone from your team go sit with them and fix bugs and see how fun a false positive is. Let's talk about resources, because if you don't have what you need, some of this doesn't matter, right? So create standards or documents that tell the rest of IT exactly what you actually want from them. I don't mean a compliance document. I don't mean something that's 200 pages. I don't mean something that no one understands. I mean really explicit, clear rules. Like public-facing web apps can only be accessible with HTTPS, period. End of rule, right? And then if they do all of these things, they release a pretty good app. It's like a roadmap. It's really good. Give developers security tools. They just might do your job for you. I've done this before. It's awesome. When the bill comes in, I know that training costs money. I know that consultants cost money. I know all of these things cost money, and then when my hair touches the mic, it makes loud noises. But when you're paying, try to remember that you're getting your mandate done, right? You're making more secure code, and you're investing in your team, and you need these things. But if that's not enough, just remember, this is way cheaper than a breach. Just when you write that check, way cheaper than a breach. I'm going to introduce your new best friend. This is my best friend, OWASP. This is a group, an international group with chapters all around the world of around 200,000 security nerds who are obsessed with application security. It's free. Invite and encourage your developers to join this community. They might get hooked and join your AppSec team like I did. Now security change. Now security culture change. See the happy dog? Okay, so no more blaming. From now on, it's not Alice's fault or Bob's fault. What we want to look at is what happened, how do we fix this immediately, and how do we make sure that this never happens again, right? This is called a blameless postmortem, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's just not okay to not learn from it when we do. I like this slide. When you go to work, if you are in a leadership position, when anyone goes to work, but especially if you're in a leadership position, you are setting an example every single day, and you are teaching your staff what's appropriate. So if you yell at people, swear, talk down to people, talk badly about other teams behind their back, you're saying, that's okay to do at work. So if you set a positive example at work, you're professional at all times, what you will be doing is making your team trust you more, but also you are setting an example for them to follow. And when you do that, if you're always the bigger person, your team will follow you anywhere. So with that, I'm going to summarize. Support the development and security team with processes, training, and resources so that they can confidently get their jobs done. And then initiate and maintain culture change. And with that, I would like to do a call to action to this audience. So people that come to security conferences, you know a lot of stuff. You're seeing a lot of modern things. You're seeing things from many angles. Go back to your office and set that example. I know that sounds cheesy, be the change that you want to see, but it works. It really does, right? So I'm not kidding. Right now, InfoSec is fighting a battle, and I don't know if you haven't noticed, but we're not really winning right now, right? Like, we could do better, and we are releasing insecure apps all the time, and if we want to win, we need to be best friends with developers. We need to get everyone involved and everyone engaged and fighting this battle with us, so security is everybody's job. So I'm calling upon all of you, because it has to start somewhere. Why not with all of you? Thank you for your time and attention today.